The fluorescent lights flickered in the lower maintenance tunnels of Space Station Delta, casting strange shadows on the metal walls. Tom Walker wiped the sweat from his forehead as he carried his toolbox through the narrow corridor. At 32 years old, he wasn't the youngest maintenance engineer on the station, but he was definitely the most curious. 5 years had passed since Earth joined the Galactic Council, and Space Station Delta had become a hub for various alien species. Most humans still kept their distance from the more intimidating aliens, especially the warriors of the Crest Legion, massive beings who stood 3 times taller than the average person. Tom checked his tablet, following the blinking red dot that marked another malfunctioning power relay. He liked working in the lower levels because it was quiet, and he could fix things without anyone hovering over his shoulder. The other engineers called him crazy for volunteering to work in these isolated areas, but Tom never minded. A deep grunt echoed through the corridor, followed by the sound of something heavy hitting the metal floor. Tom stopped. The sound came from around the corner, in a section that should have been empty according to the station's schedules. Most people would have called security or walked away. But Tom wasn't most people. He adjusted his grip on his toolbox and walked toward the noise. The sight that greeted him made him freeze. A massive Crest Legion warrior sat slumped against the wall, dark blue blood seeping from a deep cut in his arm. The warrior was easily 9 feet tall, with gray stone-like skin and muscles that looked like they could bend steel. 4 bright yellow eyes locked onto Tom, narrowing with both pain and pride. "You should leave, little human," the warrior rumbled, his voice deep enough to make the floor vibrate. Tom looked at the injury, then at his toolbox, then back at the warrior. "That looks pretty bad," he said, keeping his voice steady. "I can help." The warrior's eyes widened slightly, probably surprised that Tom hadn't run away screaming. "A warrior does not need help from a tiny creature," he growled, but Tom noticed the warrior wasn't trying to stand up. "Maybe not," Tom agreed, already opening his toolbox. "But this tiny creature happens to be pretty good at fixing things, even big, stubborn things." He pulled out a medical kit, something he always carried for emergencies. The warrior watched him with a mixture of confusion and curiosity. "You are either very brave or very foolish. I get that a lot," Tom replied with a small smile. "I'm Tom. Tom Walker. And you are?" The warrior was quiet for a moment before answering. "My name would be difficult for your tongue. My battlemates call me Stone." "Well, Stone," Tom said, pulling out antiseptic and bandages, "want to tell me how a mighty warrior ended up bleeding in a maintenance tunnel?" Stone's upper right hand clenched. "Training accident. The practice drones malfunctioned. I came here so others would not see my weakness." Tom nodded, understanding. He'd learned enough about the Crest Legion to know they valued strength above all else. "You know," he said, carefully cleaning the wound, "on Earth, some of our strongest warriors were the ones who knew when to accept help. Can't fight well if you bleed out in a tunnel. Right?" Stone watched as Tom worked, his expression unreadable. The wound was deep, but Tom's steady hands made quick work of cleaning and bandaging it. Other aliens would have trembled at being so close to a Crest warrior, but Tom worked as calmly as if he were fixing another broken relay. "There," Tom said, packing up his supplies. "Not perfect, but it should hold until you can see a proper medic, though I'm guessing you won't." Stone flexed his arm, testing the bandage. "You have unusual courage for a human," he said finally, "and skill with your hands." "Just doing what needs doing," Tom replied, standing up. "Same as any engineer." He picked up his toolbox and turned to leave. "Tom Walker," Stone called out, making him pause. "Perhaps you are not as weak as you look." Tom grinned over his shoulder. "You know what, Stone? Maybe you're not as scary as you look either." The next day, Tom walked through the busy cafeteria of Space Station Delta carrying 2 trays of food. Other humans stared at him as if he had gone mad when he headed straight for the Crest Legion section. The massive warriors sat apart from everyone else, their table twice the size of normal ones. Stone sat alone at the end of the table, his injured arm carefully hidden beneath his armor. His yellow eyes widened slightly when Tom placed a tray in front of him. "What is this?" Stone asked, looking down at the food. "Lunch," Tom replied simply, sitting down across from him. The chair seemed tiny compared to the warrior's massive frame. "Thought you might want to try some human food. It's called a burger." The other warriors at the table stopped eating, watching the strange scene unfold. No human had ever willingly sat at their table before. Stone looked at the burger, then at Tom. "Why are you here, small one?" "Because that's what friends do," Tom said, taking a bite of his own burger. "They share meals and talk. Unless that's against your warrior code." A low rumble came from Stone's chest, something between a growl and a laugh. "You are either very brave or very mad." But he picked up the burger with his massive hands, careful not to crush it. "You said that yesterday." Tom grinned. "How's the arm?" "It heals," Stone replied quietly. "Your solution was effective." The warrior next to Stone, even larger than him, leaned forward. "You allowed this tiny human to treat your wounds." His voice carried a mix of shock and disapproval. Tom spoke before Stone could answer. "On Earth, we had warriors called samurai. They lived by a strict code of honor, kind of like you folks. But their greatest master once said that true strength comes from knowing when to accept help and when to give it." The large warrior's 4 eyes narrowed. "You compare us to human warriors." "Not comparing," Tom said calmly, taking another bite. "Just sharing stories. Like how some of Earth's strongest fighters learned new ways from people they thought were weak, made them even stronger in the end." Stone watched Tom carefully as he spoke. The human showed no fear, just genuine interest in sharing knowledge. It went against everything the Crest Legion believed about smaller species. "Tell me more about these samurai," Stone said suddenly, surprising everyone at the table. Tom spent the next hour telling stories about Earth's warrior cultures. He talked about knights who showed mercy, generals who won battles with wisdom instead of strength, and fighters who became stronger by learning from their enemies. Other warriors started listening, though they pretended not to. Tom noticed how they turned their heads slightly toward him, their ears picking up every word. "Your species is strange," Stone said finally, after finishing the burger. "You are physically weak, yet you survived countless wars. You lack natural weapons, yet you reached the stars. We're good at adapting," Tom shrugged. "And we learn from everyone we meet." Speaking of learning, he pulled out a small device from his pocket. "I made this for you. It's a modified healing patch designed for your skin type, better than my quick fix from yesterday." Stone stared at the device. "You created this for me." "That's what engineers do. We see problems and fix them." Tom stood up, gathering his tray. "Same time tomorrow. I've got some stories about Viking warriors you might like." As Tom walked away, he heard the warriors talking among themselves in their deep, rumbling voices. He caught words like unusual and interesting in their conversation. Back at the human section, his coworkers looked at him like he had just walked through fire. "How are you still alive?" one of them asked. Tom smiled, thinking about the surprised look on Stone's face when he tried the burger. "You know, they're not so different from us. They just need someone to show them that strength comes in many forms." That evening, when Tom checked his work schedule, he found that several Crest Legion warriors had specifically requested him for repairs in their section. It seemed Stone wasn't the only one interested in learning more about human ways. 2 weeks had passed since Tom first shared lunch with Stone. The maintenance engineer now found himself in one of the station's largest training rooms, watching Stone demonstrate Crest Legion fighting moves. The massive warrior moved with surprising grace for his size, his 4 arms flowing through complex battle forms. "The key is balance," Stone explained, his feet planted firmly on the training mat. "Even a warrior 3 times your size can fall if their center is weak." Tom sat cross-legged on a bench, taking notes on his tablet. Other warriors trained nearby, occasionally glancing at the unusual pair. What had started as daily lunch meetings had grown into something more, a true exchange of knowledge between their cultures. "It's like fixing the station's gravity generators," Tom said thoughtfully. "Everything has to be perfectly balanced, or the whole system fails." Stone paused his demonstration, all four yellow eyes focusing on Tom. "You see combat like machine repair?" "Well, yeah." Tom stood up, walking over to Stone. "Look at your stance. It's like a support beam. Too much weight in the wrong place." And he gently pushed against Stone's arm, causing the warrior to shift slightly. "See, even I can move you." A deep laugh rumbled from Stone's chest. "Perhaps there is wisdom in your engineer's mind after all." The training room's door slid open, and a group of human engineers walked in. They stopped dead in their tracks when they saw Tom standing next to the giant warrior. One of them, Bill from upper maintenance, actually dropped his toolbox. "Tom," Bill called out nervously, "everything okay over there?" "Never better." Tom waved. "Stone's teaching me about Crest Legion combat forms. Did you know they use the same principles as our station support structures?" Stone crossed his upper arms, looking at the nervous humans. "Your friend sees patterns where others see only fear." He turned to Tom. "Show them what you learned." Tom stepped onto the training mat, taking the basic stance Stone had taught him. "It's all about distribution of force," he explained to his fellow engineers, "just like when we're fixing the heavy machinery." To everyone's surprise, Tom moved through a simple Crest Legion combat form. He wasn't nearly as graceful as Stone, but the basic principles were clear in his movements. "Impossible," another warrior muttered from across the room. "A human performing our sacred forms." "Why impossible?" Stone challenged, his voice carrying across the training room. "Tom Walker understands the core of our teachings better than some warriors. He sees with an engineer's eye, finding truth in structure." The other humans had edged closer, fascination overtaking their fear. Bill picked up his toolbox and ventured nearer. "Those movements, they're like the maintenance procedures for the main reactor stabilization." "Exactly." Tom grinned. "Every culture has its own way of seeing things, but when you look close enough, you start finding connections." Stone nodded approvingly. "Show them the repair technique you taught me." Tom pulled out his tablet and displayed a hologram of a complex machine part. Stone moved his massive hands through the hologram, explaining how the repair sequence matched certain warrior meditation practices. Soon, both humans and warriors gathered around them, watching this strange exchange of knowledge. Engineers pointed out mechanical principles in combat forms, while warriors saw battle strategies and repair procedures. "You know," Tom said later, as they finished the impromptu lesson, "my grandfather used to say that the best way to understand someone is to learn how they see the world." Stone placed one of his massive hands carefully on Tom's shoulder. "And how do you see us now, small friend?" "Not as giants to fear," Tom replied honestly, "but as teachers with different lessons to share." As they left the training room that day, Tom noticed something had changed. The humans and warriors didn't immediately separate into their usual groups. Instead, a few engineers lingered to ask questions about combat forms, while some warriors showed interest in the repair tools. "You have started something unexpected," Stone said as they walked. Tom smiled. "Sometimes the best fixes come from unexpected places." That evening, Space Station Delta's command received an unusual request: more mixed training sessions between maintenance crews and Crest Legion warriors. It seemed Tom and Stone's friendship had sparked something bigger than either of them had imagined. Tom knew something was wrong the moment he entered the station's main hall. A crowd had gathered, forming a circle around two massive figures. Stone stood at one end, facing another Crest Legion warrior who was even larger than him. The other warrior's name was Rock, and he was known as one of the most traditional members of the Legion. "You dishonor our ways," Rock's voice boomed through the hall. "Learning from humans, teaching them our sacred forms. You have become weak, Stone." Tom pushed through the crowd, his heart beating faster. He had feared something like this might happen. Not all warriors approved of the recent changes on the station. Stone stood tall, all four of his arms relaxed at his sides. True strength comes in many forms, Rock. The humans have taught me this. Then prove your strength, Rock growled. I challenge you to combat in the arena. Tomorrow. Unless you are too weak to defend your honor. The crowd whispered. A formal challenge couldn't be ignored. Tom watched as Stone's yellow eyes narrowed. I accept your challenge, Stone replied calmly. Rock smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. When I win, you will stop this foolishness with the humans. You will return to our true ways. And when I win, Stone said firmly, you will attend one of the joint training sessions with the engineers. The crowd broke into excited chatter. Humans and aliens alike pulled out their communicators, spreading the news across the station. Tom waited until Rock stomped away before approaching his friend. Stone, Tom said quietly. Rock's never lost a challenge fight. I know. Stone looked down at his small friend. But sometimes one must fight to protect what they believe in. Tom nodded, then pulled out his tablet. Then let's prepare. I've been recording all the training sessions. Maybe we can find something useful. They spent the next hours in Stone's quarters, reviewing combat footage. Tom had recorded not just their training sessions, but matches between other warriors too. He played the videos slowly, his engineer's mind analyzing every movement. Look at this, Tom pointed to a pattern in Rock's fighting style. He always shifts his weight to his back leg before a major strike. And here, he showed another clip. He never protects his lower left side after an attack. Stone watched intently. You see these patterns in combat like you see them in your machines. Everything has a pattern, Tom explained. Even fighting styles. Rock relies on pure strength and traditional forms. But you've learned to adapt, to see things differently. Through the night, they studied and planned. Tom brought coffee to help him stay awake, explaining to an amused Stone how humans used it to keep working long hours. They developed a strategy that combined Crest Legion power with human adaptability. As morning approached, Stone practiced new movements that mixed traditional forms with the efficiency principles Tom used in his repair work. They weren't perfect, but they were unexpected. The other warriors will say you're breaking tradition, Tom said as they finished preparing. Stone performed one last practice move. Traditions that cannot adapt will break. You taught me this, small friend. Just then, the station speakers announced morning shift. The arena combat would begin in 2 hours. Stone, Tom said seriously, whatever happens today, I want you to know that your friendship has changed how many humans see the Crest Legion. You've built a bridge between our peoples. The giant warrior knelt down to be closer to Tom's eye level. And you, Tom Walker, have taught me that true strength often comes in small packages. He placed one massive hand carefully on Tom's shoulder. Now let us show Rock what happens when human wisdom meets warrior strength. As they walked to the arena, other engineers and friendly warriors joined them. Word had spread, and it seemed the entire station was choosing sides. The maintenance crews had even made banners supporting Stone. Ready? Tom asked as they reached the arena entrance. Stone nodded, his yellow eyes bright with determination. Ready to make history, small friend. The station's arena was packed. Humans from every department stood alongside aliens from dozens of worlds. The maintenance crew occupied an entire section, their homemade banners displaying wrenches crossed with Crest Legion symbols. Station security hovered nervously around the edges, worried about mixing so many species in one place. Tom stood at the edge of the combat circle, watching Stone prepare. The arena itself was a large circular platform, raised 3 feet off the ground and covered in special material that could withstand even Crest Legion strength. Rock entered from the opposite side, his gray skin gleaming under the bright lights. He was nearly a foot taller than Stone, and his muscles bulged beneath his ceremonial armor. Many warriors in the crowd cheered for him. Remember the patterns, Tom said quietly to Stone. He's stronger, but you're smarter. Stone nodded, All four of his yellow eyes focused on his opponent. Like fixing a broken engine, every problem has a solution. The arena's warning bells rang, signaling the start of combat. Rock charged forward immediately, his traditional battle cry shaking the walls. This was how most challenge fights began, with raw power and aggression. But Stone didn't meet the charge head-on. Instead, he moved like flowing water, just as Tom had suggested. It was a motion inspired by how engineers guided heavy machinery into place. Minimal force, maximum efficiency. Rock's charge missed, causing him to stumble slightly. Confused murmurs spread through the crowd. This wasn't how Crest Legion warriors usually fought. "What is this cowardice?" Rock snarled, throwing a massive punch with his upper right arm. Stone blocked the blow using the technique they had practiced, distributing the force like a station support beam handles stress. "Not cowardice," Stone replied calmly. "Wisdom." The fight continued, with Rock throwing powerful but predictable attacks. Stone moved like Tom had taught him, treating each of Rock's strikes like a problem to be solved, rather than a force to be met head-on. "Look at his left side," Tom muttered under his breath, just like in the videos. As if hearing him, Stone spotted the opening they had studied. When Rock launched another heavy attack, Stone countered using a combination of Crest Legion strength and human engineering principles. The move sent Rock stumbling off balance for the first time in anyone's memory. The crowd gasped. Even the other warriors stopped their chanting, watching with all their eyes wide open. Rock roared in frustration, launching his signature four-armed assault. But Stone remembered what Tom had shown him in the practice videos. Just like a failing engine showed warning signs before breaking down, Rock's body telegraphed his moves. Stone waited for Rock to shift his weight to his back leg, the pattern Tom had spotted. Then he struck, using Rock's own momentum against him. The larger warrior crashed to the arena floor with a boom that echoed through the station. The arena fell silent. In all of known history, no one had ever seen a Crest Legion warrior fall quite like that. Rock tried to stand, but Stone held him down using the same principles that kept the station's heaviest machinery stable. The larger warrior struggled for a moment, then slapped the ground 4 times with his hands, the signal of surrender. The maintenance crew erupted in cheers. Their shouts were soon joined by amazed aliens and even some of the younger warriors. Stone helped Rock to his feet, showing respect to his fallen opponent. "How?" Rock asked, his voice quiet enough that only Stone could hear. "How did you defeat me?" "By learning that strength takes many forms," Stone replied. "Tomorrow, you will join the engineers' training session. There is much we can learn from them." Rock looked over at Tom, then back at Stone. Finally, he nodded slowly. Perhaps there is wisdom in new ways." Tom ran up to Stone, beaming with pride. The giant warrior picked up his small friend and placed him on his shoulder, a gesture that would have been unthinkable just weeks ago. "We did it," Tom laughed. "No, small friend," Stone corrected him. "You did it. You showed us a new kind of strength." As they left the arena together, humans and warriors alike stepped aside respectfully. Something had changed on Space Station Delta. The barrier between species had been broken not by force, but by friendship and understanding. And it had all started because one human had the guts to help an injured warrior in a maintenance tunnel. 1 week after the challenge fight, Space Station Delta had changed in ways nobody could have predicted. Tom sat in the newly expanded training area, watching something that would have seemed impossible a month ago. 3 Crest Legion warriors were learning about engine maintenance from a human engineer half their size. "Careful with that wrench," Bill instructed, standing on a raised platform to better reach the training engine. "Think of it like your combat moves. It's not about force, it's about precision." To everyone's surprise, Rock was among the warriors learning. After his defeat, he had kept his word and attended the engineering sessions. Now he was often the first to arrive and the last to leave. "Like this?" Rock asked, delicately adjusting a valve with his massive hands. For someone who could bend steel bars, He showed remarkable gentleness with the tools. Perfect. Bill grinned. You're a natural at this. Tom felt a familiar heavy step behind him and turned to see Stone approaching. Your victory has started something big, Tom said, gesturing to the scene before them. Stone sat down beside him, the reinforced bench creaking under his weight. Our victory, he corrected. And yes, the council has noticed. That was an understatement. News of a human-taught fighting style defeating a traditional Crest Legion warrior had spread across the galaxy. Now, other stations were requesting information about their joint training program. Look, Tom pointed to another corner of the training area. A group of human security officers were learning Crest Legion combat stances, while warriors from different ships studied human repair techniques nearby. The old ones in the Legion were angry at first. Stone rumbled. But they cannot argue with results. Yesterday, a warrior on Station Beta used your engine repair principles to defeat a rogue combat drone. Tom watched as Rock successfully completed his first solo repair. The huge warrior's face lit up with pride, all four eyes shining. Other warriors gathered around him, asking questions about the technique. You know what's really interesting? Tom mused. The humans are changing too. Nobody flinches when they see a warrior anymore. My nephew's class even asked if a Legion member could visit their school to teach them about honor. Just then, the station's main door slid open. A group of high-ranking Crest Legion officials walked in, their ceremonial armor glinting under the lights. Everyone stopped what they were doing and stood at attention. The lead commander, easily identified by his ornate armor, walked straight to where Tom and Stone sat. Both quickly stood up. So, the commander's voice filled the room. This is where traditions are being broken. Tom felt Stone tense beside him, but before either could speak, Rock stepped forward. Commander, Rock said respectfully, I once thought the same. But look, he held up the engine part he had just fixed. There is honor in learning new ways. There is strength in understanding. The commander studied the scene. Warriors learning delicate repairs, humans practicing ancient combat forms, all working together without fear. When we first heard of this, the commander said slowly, many wanted it stopped. But our warriors on other stations are requesting similar programs. They say it makes them stronger, more complete. He turned to Tom, who tried not to show how nervous he felt under those four stern eyes. You have taught warriors to be engineers, the commander said, yet you have not weakened them. Instead, you have added to their strength. That's because strength and knowledge are the same thing, Tom replied honestly, just in different forms. The commander was quiet for a moment. Then, to everyone's shock, he laughed. The sound was like distant thunder. Well said, small one. The council has made its decision. This program will be expanded. All stations will begin similar training exchanges. The room erupted in cheers. Humans and warriors celebrated together, their voices mixing in an odd but happy harmony. As the commander left, Tom looked up at his friend. Did you hear that, Stone? They're going to do this everywhere. Stone placed one massive hand carefully on Tom's shoulder. And it all began because one small human was too stubborn to run away from an injured warrior. Tom grinned. Best decision I ever made. Around them, the future of human-alien relations was taking shape, one lesson at a time. Space Station Delta had become more than just a meeting point between species. It had become a symbol of what was possible when fear gave way to friendship. 1 year had passed since the famous challenge fight on Space Station Delta. The station looked very different now. The once separate dining areas had been replaced with mixed seating designed to fit both humans and warriors. The maintenance tunnels had been widened to allow Crest Legion members to help with repairs. Even the training areas had been completely rebuilt to accommodate joint classes. Tom stood at the station's main viewing window, watching a new ship dock. This one carried the latest group of students for the interspecies training program. Next to him, Stone adjusted his new instructor's badge, a special design showing both a wrench and a warrior's sword. Nervous? Tom asked his friend. Stone's 4 yellow eyes blinked in amusement. Warriors do not get nervous. Right, Tom grinned. And engineers never make mistakes. They watched as the new arrivals filed into the station's main hall. There were 20 humans, mostly engineers and security officers, and 15 Crest Legion warriors. All of them looked uncomfortable, stealing uncertain glances at each other. They remind me of us, Stone rumbled quietly. Look how they stay separated, just as our peoples once did. Tom nodded. Well then, let's go change that. They walked to the front of the hall together. The new arrivals stared at the odd pair, the giant warrior and the small human walking side by side as equals. Some of the younger warriors whispered among themselves, clearly recognizing Stone from the now famous challenge fight videos. Welcome to Space Station Delta, Tom announced. I'm Chief Engineer Tom Walker, and this is Combat Master Stone. We're here to teach you something that won't be found in any regular training manual. Stone stepped forward. You will learn that strength comes in many forms. The humans among you will master our combat techniques. The warriors will learn the art of delicate repairs. A young warrior raised his hand. Is it true that you defeated Rock using human engineering principles? I did, Stone answered. And now Rock leads our engineering division on Station Beta. He can take apart and rebuild a fusion drive as skillfully as he fights. One of the human engineers spoke up next. And is it true that a maintenance worker stopped a station crisis using Crest Legion combat forms? Tom smiled. That was Bill. He used warrior balance techniques to stabilize a failing gravity generator, saved 3 decks worth of people. The two groups began to look at each other with new interest. The invisible wall between them started to crack. Today, Stone announced, we begin with a tradition started 1 year ago. Humans and warriors will share a meal together. The cafeteria had been prepared for this moment. The tables were filled with both human and Crest Legion dishes. After some initial hesitation, the two groups began to mix, curiosity overcoming their old fears. Tom watched as a tiny human engineer offered to explain Earth food to a massive warrior, while nearby, a warrior demonstrated proper techniques for handling their traditional eating tools to fascinated humans. Remember when you first sat at our table? Stone asked. Other warriors thought you were mad. Now look, Tom gestured to the scene before them. This is happening on 20 different stations across the galaxy. The Galactic Council says it's the most successful cultural exchange program they've ever seen. Rock, who was visiting from Station Beta, joined them. The old ones in the Legion now say that this is the future of our people. Learning from each other makes both species stronger. They watched as a young warrior carefully showed a human engineer how to hold a repair tool like a warrior's weapon, while another human taught a group of warriors about Earth's ancient samurai code. You know what the best part is? Tom said thoughtfully. None of this was planned. It all started because one small human was brave enough to help an injured warrior. Stone finished. And one warrior was wise enough to accept that help. Rock nodded in agreement. They will tell stories about you two for generations. The human and the warrior who changed everything. Tom looked around the station that had become a symbol of unity throughout the galaxy. Engineers and warriors training together, sharing meals, learning from each other's strengths. All because of a chance meeting in a maintenance tunnel. We didn't change everything, Tom said finally. We just showed them it was possible. Stone placed his massive hand gently on Tom's shoulder. A gesture that had become a symbol of friendship between their peoples. Sometimes, small friend, showing something is possible is all the change that's needed. Together, they watched the next generation of humans and warriors begin their journey, knowing that this was just the beginning of something much bigger than themselves.